Hi everyone, this is a remote viewing 5-year forecast for 3 new SECOs that we are calling SECO 30, 31, and 32. We have done a great many studies on new SECOs that we hoped would survive and thrive into the future. And in general, we have found that most of them do not do well in the long run in terms of adoption. We decided to look at 3 SECOs this month that have a range of different functions, and fundamentally they perform differently over the course of a 5-year duration. SECO Plus stands for Contemporary Investigations of Cryptocurrency and Other Opportunities. Again, the purpose of our SECO Plus forecasts are to attempt to use remote viewing in the context of our economic forecasting methods to determine the likelihood that a cryptocurrency and occasionally some other high-tech, unusual, or edgy asset that seems relevant to the cryptocurrency realm will survive and thrive into the future. We offer our SECO Plus forecasts for free to the public to watch as videos on YouTube, but the real name of the assets in the forecast are changed so that the name referenced in the video is fictional. Potential investors can watch the forecast to see if they want to purchase the actual identity of the assets during the forecast period. We also published the list of cryptocurrencies that we have investigated through June 2022 on our website, so that people can see which currencies we have investigated. We update this list from time to time. We publish our SECO Plus forecasts as a subscription model, where those people who purchase a SECO Plus subscription get the identities of all published SECO Plus forecasts matched to all forecasts, plus all future SECO Plus forecasts that are available and current at least through the end of the year 2022. There is no extra cost for this. SECO Plus forecasts typically are for a minimum of 5 or more years. We occasionally update the forecasts, which usually extends the forecast further into the future. We publish results that are positive as well as negative. Knowing the negative ones is just as important as knowing the positive ones, especially if some people are thinking about dumping currencies from their portfolios that look like they might not thrive or survive. But of course, some SECO Plus forecasts have strong and positive results, and we are always on the lookout for those ones. And luckily for us, one of those currencies we explored this month have positive results. For the SECO Plus studies that are focused on specific cryptocurrencies, we normally probe for adoption, and that is whether a significant number of people and institutions start to use that currency. The theory is that if the currency survives and people use the currency, then it might make it a good investment. For the SECO Plus studies that do not focus on a specific cryptocurrency, they nonetheless still focus on adoption, even though it may not be the adoption of a currency. So, the concept of adoption is the same for all SECO Plus forecasts, regardless of the economic entity involved. So, let me outline what we did with this study for SECOs 30, 31, and 32. This experimental design has 2 parts for the target, which is what the viewers are supposed to perceive. The first is known now, and that is a base surface that has unique topographical elements. The second part of the target is made up of additional elements that are added to the target after the end of the forecast period using CGI software. We have a video on our website that has a basic description of the forecasting method as it was used for this study. All of the viewers described the currently verifiable elements of the base surface for these targets well. We use multiple base targets. Moreover, all of the viewers had similar or corresponding numbers of elements added to that base surface, and those results tell us how the currency and other assets will perform over the forecast period according to the rules of our experimental design. In our studies, there are a possibility of 11 additional elements that can be placed in a target using CGI software 5 or more years into the future. And our remote viewers are describing what the target looks like at the end of the forecast period after it is assembled using CGI software. The rules of how those elements are employed in the target creation process exist now, and those rules are tied to how the currency performs during the forecast period. So, when our remote viewers describe what the target looks like in the future, we know how the currency performs. For our SECO 30 forecast, the results are relatively negative, which quite honestly surprised us. But SECO 31 was more positive. However, SECO 32 did not look promising as it yielded largely indeterminate results. Remember, these forecasts are all for 5 full years. For SECO 31, our viewers describe the target as having 5, 2, and 5 additional elements out of the 11 possible elements that are added to the base target. Normally, targets with 3 or 4 added elements are good indicators of positive growth. We utilize an aggregate version of the temperature probe analysis for this SECO. Temperature probe analysis is normally used to obtain direction indicators for specific timelines such as week to week, month to month, or year to year. The aggregation method helps consolidate the timeline measurements so that we have one measure for the entire forecast period rather than week to week, month to month, or year to year, and so on. This tends to increase the accuracy of the temperature probe analysis, and it allows us to obtain an independent measure for the aggregate SECO change. We then can compare this with the measure obtained using complexity analysis. For SECO 31, the aggregate temperature probe analysis helps us interpret the complexity analysis. More specifically, there are 24 measures for temperature that were mapped to changes in adoption for this currency. Of the 24 measures for temperature, 16 are positive and 8 are negative. If you weigh these numbers by their actually perceived temperatures, then the numbers are 31 positive and 14 negative. Thus, the aggregated temperature probe analysis corresponds well enough with the complexity analysis to indicate that the SECO 31 does experience a significant rise in their user base in terms of adoption for a period of time over the next 5 years. So for SECO 31, the results are generally positive. Alright, so let's put these SECOs into perspective with respect to our previous SECOs. Moving to a numerical comparison with respect to our other SECO projects, if we average the number of elements perceived by each viewer and divide that by the total possible elements for a target, we get the proportion of total possible elements that a viewer perceives. Then we can average that proportion across all viewers to get an overall index of the currency that ranges from 0 to 1. An index number of 1 would mean that the viewer perceived every possible element that could be used in a forecast. And that would mean that the currency would be very popular, and it would be adopted by an exceptionally large community. An index number of 0 would mean the opposite, which means that the viewers perceived no additional elements over and above the base surface, which would mean that the currency would be expected to perform badly in terms of adoption. For our SECO 1 currency, that index number is 0.66. For SECO 2, that currency number is 0.725. For SECO 3, the index number is 0.575. SECO 4, 0.567. SECO 6, that number is 0.389. SECO 9, 0.472. For SECO 11, 0.413, SECO 14, 0.35, SECO 15, 0.444, SECO 16, 0.35, SECO 17, 0.392, for SECO 19, 0.45, SECO 20, 0.35, for SECO 22, 0.433, SECO 25, 0.433, SECO 28, 0.370, and SECO 29, 0.444, and finally for SECO 31, 0.423. When combined with the positive indicators for aggregate temperature probe analysis, this indicates a positive outlook for SECO 31 for the 5-year period between August 1st, 2022 and July 31st, 2027. So our remote viewing results are positive for SECO 31 in terms of adoption. This does not guarantee that these SECOs will perform well over the next 5 years, but given that we now have multiple remote viewing sessions done by very experienced remote viewers that all indicate that these SECOs' future performances are strong, this suggests that the future timelines for these SECOs are generally positive. My own thought is that paying attention to the ecosystem of SECO 31 is a good idea. But remember, this is a 5-year forecast, so adjust your expectations for the long term. Again, our results for SECO 31 do yield indicators for overall positive growth in terms of adoption. However, the data for SECO 30 did not show promising results. Remember though, we probe for adoption, not price, when looking at these SECOs. Our data indicates that our current general trajectory in time does not show a positive change in adoption for SECO 30. SECO 32 also did not yield positive results, as our data was largely indeterminate. Despite slightly hinting towards the negative with SECO 32, there was no major swing in the data hinting towards a major change in one direction or the other. So based on our data, we simply cannot recommend investing conventionally in the long term of adoption with SECO 30 and 32. And remember our disclaimer. No one at Farsight is a licensed financial advisor, so anything that anyone at Farsight does that relates to using remote viewing to predict financial or economic outcomes of any type, including the performance, however defined, or selling prices of cryptocurrencies, stocks, commodities, or anything else, is done for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everyone doing investments are doing so at their own risk. These are experiments in remote viewing, and there are no guarantees or warranties being made, either expressed or implied. Nonetheless, these efforts are truly interesting on a grand scale, and we at Farsight believe that after we do this for a while, it will be hard for anyone to ignore the reality of remote viewing. As we have said in the past, may you follow your own intuitions, make wise investment decisions, and become rich. Thank you for supporting our efforts at Farsight. Together, we will change the world for the better. I'm Aziz Brown from Farsight.